I am delighted to welcome in the final session of the day on the industry main stage. This is a fireside chat with Rabble, a pioneering technologist and activist renowned for their work in social media and decentralized technologies. Rabble will be interviewed by the wonderful Jim Louderback, former CEO of VidCon and current editor and CEO of Inside Creator Economy. Please welcome Jim and Rabble to the stage.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much. It's nice to be back on stage with you all. We are going to, by the way, this is Rabble. Rabble's amazing. We're going to talk about rebuilding social and what Rabble is doing with that. We're going to get into a whole bunch of stuff: creator ownership, decentralization, safety, authenticity. This is not about nostalgia or a product pitch. It's about where we are, where we came from with social, and where we are going. And I want to start off. So, Rabble, I don't know if you know this guy, but he was employee number one at Twitter. Talk about that. What was that all about?
Yeah, I mean, so in 2004, I saw this blog post for looking for a developer for Citizen Lab, and it was going to be a participatory technology, because we didn't call it social media at the time. And I tracked it down, and it was Ev Williams, who had created Blogger at the time, and, you know, of course, has gone on to do many other things like Twitter and Medium. And I was like, Ev, I've got to work with you. I want to do this thing. And we built the first commercial company to do audio blogging, which then got renamed podcasting. And then we...
By the way, that company was called Odeo.
Called Odeo.
Wait, what did Odeo mean?
It was just a play on words with audio.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
But it means hate in Spanish, so
really?
like that's not so good.
That's like when they named that car Nova. You remember they took the Nova to Spain? It's like, oh, doesn't go. Not a good car name. Anyway, I'm sorry. Keep going.
So what happened was then we went up against Apple, and Apple integrated podcasting into iTunes and then neglected it. And so the team was like, well, what do we do? How do we do this thing? And what the sort of amazing thing that popped up was we had this idea of playing with text messages, because we had built a text message alert system for protests in 2004. And we said, well, what if we built a social network that was just text messages? What if it was super simple that like you could post and you could follow and everything else? And that the initial prototype we built in a day, and that became first Friendstalker. And then we decided
What stalker?
Friendstalker.
Friendstalker.
That was the code name for Twitter. And then that was a terrible name.
Well, for so many different reasons.
Yes. And then we registered twttr.com with no vowels, which people called Twatter, which was also a terrible name.
Well, no vowels was no vowels was a thing then, right? Remember,
Yeah,
everything had no vowels, right?
Yeah, the Flickr world.
Or they had too many letters. Like I was helping dig out, it was 2 G's instead of 1.
Yeah, we were all playing with domain names at the time. And so, but the thing that happened there is the users took it over. The users went from this is the stupidest thing ever to designing and building it, and developers showed up, and there was this API that was sort of accidentally created. And so Twitter functioned like a internet protocol. It functioned a lot like podcasting, which we've been doing before that. And all of the innovation happened on the edges, and people were doing lots of creativity and lots of building stuff, TweetDeck and the @reply and the hashtag and all these other things. And then the leadership turned over, and all of a sudden they decided they needed to control everything, and they needed advertisement, and they needed to control the experience, and that was the only business model. And that was the moment that some of us, Jack Dorsey, myself, Blaine Cook, who created OAuth, we were like, wait, this has gone wrong. Like this is we didn't know how to fix it. But we did know that the thing that we had built, openness in podcasting, and was open in Twitter, stopped being open and sort of creative and open-ended, and ended up being much more of a consumer app.
Yeah, I really thought Twitter turned the corner when they got rid of the API and all those apps, because I love TweetDeck. I love all those different things that were invented. And my Twitter usage, I have to say, kind of started to draw off once I had to deal with like the Twitter official interface.
Well, because that was the thing, is that if you think about it, podcasting, you listen to it on the podcast app of your choice. You can choose, do I listen to it on Spotify, or do I listen to it on, Safecast, or whatever Apple Podcasts, and you get to choose, and you get the experience. You get to decide what your experience is. And that was the case for Twitter originally. And then they decided that for incentives, for ads, for control, that they were going to make sort of this thing where you had to use their app. And they locked you out. And that was the moment, actually, back in 2012, 2013, right when Vine, eventually, we'll talk about that, comes along, that we said, well, something happened. Like, the company that we thought we were building went awry.
Let's talk about podcasting for a minute, because in those days, and we did this with my Revision 3, which is the early network I built, which is built on video podcasting, but we were using RSS, and RSS, real simple syndication, in case you don't know. RSS was what was used for delivering articles. Like, websites would put all of their web stories on RSS, and you had these RSS readers, you still have them, to be able to bring them in, except for Feed Demon, the late lamented, my favorite. But talk about how podcasting avoided, maybe it was RSS, maybe it was something else, the sort of, we were saying fuck at the last one, the enshittification of social.
Absolutely. So, ironically enough, podcasting uses RSS.
Right.
It's just a link to an MP3 file, and the podcasters, they had an awareness that other social media creators after them have not had. And so there was a moment where Apple and these other podcast platforms, they decided they were going to help podcasters by uploading those MP3s, those podcasts, onto their own CDN, which means that the platforms knew your viewership numbers. And the platforms could do ad insertion if they wanted to. And the podcasters got together and had sort of a strike, a guild, where they said, we're going to block anyone that controls our experience. We need to control that hosting and that thing. And that's what has kept podcasting open. And that's what was harder to do with video and harder to do with Twitter. And so we ended up with these centralized platforms with lots of problematic power dynamics, while we still had podcasting off here, sort of, you choose your ad provider of choice, you choose your hoster of choice, listen to your podcast of choice. Like we have this example of the openness at the same time that we saw centralization and control sort of creep over the rest of social media.
Yeah, you kind of went from choose your own adventure to this, like, we're forcing you down this one path, none of it twisty.
Yeah, and then we went from you choose who you subscribe to algorithms that decide what you're going to see and how you're going to see it. And that, again, devalued the creator. Now, there's lots of reasons the algorithms are great. Like, they're fun. Like, they give you easy ways to discover stuff. But they...
and lots of dopamine squirts.
yeah. I mean, there's some problems with them. But what happened was those algorithms ended up not being for you, but for the platforms that are driving ad revenue, for the incentives that they have.
So you brought up Vine, and I want you to talk a little bit about Divine, but I want to talk about Vine as well. But I want you to talk a little bit about what you're building now, and then I want to go back to talk about what made Vine so unique and some of the things that you're bringing in. But I would be remiss not to have you say, what are you doing with Divine? You brought Vine back, sort of homage. I don't know. Tell me more about it.
Yeah, so a year ago, I sat back down with Jack Dorsey, who has long since, of course, left Twitter and, stepped down. And the two of us said, what can we, how can we fix the mistakes of the past? And the mistake central to it was that social media wasn't an internet protocol. It wasn't open source. It wasn't permissionless, that there was a company there and the corporations controlled it, and they drove it for the wrong incentives. They wouldn't let creators put links and things. And so we didn't know what we were going to build or how. What we said was just like, how do we rethink this? How do we make it more like podcasting? And in order to understand how we got there, I started a podcast, revolution.social, and I started interviewing. I interviewed Jack. I interviewed Kara Swisher, who's a fierce critic of the tech industry. I interviewed Yoel Roth, who ran trust and safety at Twitter. I interviewed the journalist Taylor Lawrence, who covered Vine and so many other things. And they kept talking about Vine as this example of this social media that had been lost. And so I went back to Jack and I said, well, what happened? Because he was CEO when Vine got shut down. And he's like, look, we were just losing too much money and there was no business model. And I said, well, maybe we could rebuild it today. I don't think anyone will be interested.
Right.
But I think I could figure out how to make it work. And so I sat down and I spent about a week and I was like, oh, look, I can make it work. And then I was like, well, what happened to those old videos?
Right.
And I found all these Vine compilations online. And the thing about them was that they weren't accessible. They had been all like, they had overlays of text and people had selected them. And I kept digging and digging and I found that archive team and the Internet Archive and some other sort of digital sort of archaeologists had saved a huge amount of the Vine archive, which is now gone offline. And I was like, well, I wonder if I could like reconstruct this. And so I did that, and I expected a few thousand people. I would show it to people, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is so cool."
Wait, let me take a step back here. So you built this framework, then you hoovered up a bunch of old Vine videos from archive.org, which is, thank you, Brewster.
Brewster Kale,
Yeah,
the Internet
Brewster Kale's
Archive.
the best librarian of the world. And so you hoovered all this stuff up, and suddenly you had a Vine clone of some sort that was sort of like Vine with all the old content?
Yeah, we got the old content. Initially, we owned like 100,000 videos, and then we found a couple million, and now we even have tens of millions that we're still uploading, and because we kept finding more.
Right.
And then we put out a little press release and a TechCrunch article saying, "Hey, look, we brought it back, and we're fixing some mistakes and like that." And then all of a sudden, Lele Pons and all these other Viners are sending me DMs begging for accounts to come back, and we had a test flight, 10,000 people for to be able to test it. And that filled up in like 4 hours. And we had 150,000 people. And we did not run a giant marketing campaign. Like, we announced it at Web Summit, and we got some TechCrunch articles, and we put out a press release, but it just blew up. And what we realized is that there's something really missing from the world of social media that we have today. And that there's a desire to do it in a different way. And we brought the archive back, and I thought internet historians would be interested in it. But sort of randomly while we were putting it together, I was like getting more and more annoyed by AI generated content. And so I was like, what can we do? What can we as people do about this AI generated content? Because every time I'd look at a video, and I know you all have done this, where you go and you look, and then you look at the comments and you scroll to the top and you see the top comment and it says AI, and you're like, oh fuck, I was tricked again. And I went to my friend Nathan Frias, who has building human rights tech. It's like very serious tech for like journalists in authoritarian regimes and activists. And he had built ways to verify from camera through edits the origins of the videos. And so I was like, well, if we use this C2PA content authentication proof mode stuff, maybe we can know what's real. And that was the other aspect of Divine that we just stumbled upon. We're just like, I don't like the AI slop. What can we do with it? How do we know what's real? And it turns out that if you rebuild things from scratch, you can solve some of these unsolvable problems.
Okay, so let's start with Vine. What about Vine made it so interesting, attractive, and different? Remember, we're talking 6-second videos, repeat, great creativity. But what made it something that was so special that was lost when Twitter just shut it down?
I mean, the thing about Vine that was so amazing is the work that they did in making the camera simple. Because you open up the camera, you press down, it records, you release it, pauses, and so you are able to very quickly do kinds of edits and things like that, and it's all on the phone. Before that, you would shoot on a camera, and then you would take it and you would digitize it, and you put it on a computer and edit it in Premiere, and then go, like, a whole long process. And Vine was all about this immediacy, and so it got picked up by now people who are a generation of creators who use CapCut and all these other tools, but they were high school kids just videoing what was going on in their lives and dancing and doing skits.
I remember telling when Vine was first coming out. I remember telling Hank Green, who started VidCon and ran it for a long time, "Are you going to change the name to VineCon from VidCon?" He didn't appreciate that, but it was something special.
It was something special, and it was the first moment when social video became massive.
Right. You didn't need to know how to work. You didn't need an expensive camera. You didn't need an editor or anything. You just boom, 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 boom. Was there anything about the distribution side of it or the discovery side of it that was really unique to what Vine had?
So it had a few things that were really powerful. One, you could collab between people, and then you could revine them. And so a primary way of discovery was social, because it was pre-algorithm. And so you would go and you would look on the popular page and you would find people, and then you would find the videos they did with others. And it made it possible for things to go viral when we didn't even know that that was possible. It was the sort of the first moment that people become these stars, and the Viners themselves went from being very sort of creative but unknown people without access to becoming stars, because people could have a relationship to them, and they didn't need the apparatus of a Hollywood machine and agents and studios and these other things that promoted them.
Well, I will say you had that on YouTube as well, but YouTube required a different level of effort and a different level of experience where again, it was mostly in those days on your computer, right?
Yeah.
And here you had this little thing in your pocket that you pulled out and it was like your best friend just making a little thing for you. I think it made parasocial relationships even more easy to get but also more special. They felt better in many ways.
Yeah, so one of the things that I used to say about Twitter in the very early days is Twitter is where you post the things going on in your life that aren't important enough to tell your friends when you meet up for them with coffee. It's like the ephemerality of your life. But what Vine did is it let you do that in video, which is so much richer. And the app to create is the same app to consume.
Right.
And that is something very different than what YouTube was at the time. And I still don't know if the YouTube app, I use a different app, YT, the studio app, to produce YouTube versus record. It was a unified experience. And so it encouraged the people who are viewing to create themselves.
Okay, so you've taken Divine, you've rebuilt it, you've loaded up all the old ones in. People are in it now. What's the state right now? Can everybody here get on Vine? Can everybody use it and experience it and play with it? Is it available on Android and Apple and everything else?
Yeah, so we originally announced it in November thinking that a few thousand people would be interested in it. And the servers totally collapsed. And I was like, ooh, this isn't going to work. And so I sat down and I brought in some more people because it was a one-person project. And we rebuilt it. And we rebuilt the servers. And in about a month ago in May, we put it in the App Store, but we've got invite codes. And if you see this, RABL 2016, put that in as an invite code. You can go to the App Store and install it and start using it. And
RABL 2016.
and so,
Did I get that right?
yep, you got that right. And so right now what we're trying to do is learn what it's like to build something different. Like, how do we help kids under 16 be creators but connecting to their parents, and so that they know what they're doing with them, as opposed to them going off and doing it how do we build this? How do we build a For You algorithm that values who you're following?
Right.
So like the other
Gosh, what a concept.
I know, like the For You algorithms that you see on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram, they're not triggered to highlight who you follow. And so we have a floor, which is if you follow someone, I damn well want to make sure that you see it in the feed. You can see other stuff, people you don't follow, ideas, interest graphs, all of those things. But if you follow someone, it means you want to see their content. And so what we're doing right now in this beta period is sort of learning how to make all that stuff work and making sure that we have a camera experience that is good enough for the users.
And so you still use the camera only to create content. You don't let people upload, right?
Yeah, you have to use the camera to create content, and because we need the provenance of it, we need to verify the paper trail of where the videos
That's why
came
I was
from.
getting to the AI side of it. So talk about your no AI, how no AI is there, and how do you enforce no AI?
So it seems really hard to remove AI because you no longer can see that sixth finger or like the random like perspective that doesn't work, or like the face changes midway through the video and you're like, that wasn't the same person that it was 2 seconds ago. AI is getting better already, and it's going to get even better as it goes forward. And so this isn't a problem that people didn't anticipate. It turns out that academic researchers, and actually Adobe and Microsoft and Google, they all years ago said AI generated video is eventually going to get good enough that you can't tell by looking at it. And so they developed this technology, and it's very wonky. It's called C2PA.
C2BA.
PA.
BA, right.
And this technology basically lets you do sort of digital watermarks you can't see, that every single time you, from the camera through the editing, through the selecting, through downloading, can verify who made the videos, what cameras it came from, all the changes that it happens. And this technology, it exists inside the AI generated videos too. Okay. And so we can check this and we generate it, and so that users know that it was a real person shot with a real camera on this day, this kind of thing. And we can then check it and filter out any time person who tries to sort of somehow get an AI generated video on the thing. And we basically are providing an authenticity paper trail around the content.
Aren't you kind of creating a challenge to every hacker out there who's going to get their own model, their video creation model, and be like, we can beat it?
Oh, absolutely. It's a challenge, and part of why we haven't launched entirely yet is we need to get it right. But the reality is that the large language models and the AI, with what they're doing, is they're making all of the hacking easy, because you can send off the AI to try every version of possibility. And so security by obscurity of just like, well, you don't know how it works, that's no longer going to work in the world. And so we have to build things that are sort of battle tested. And this technology works. And you know, the funny thing is, Microsoft produced the report on this technology and on AI generated content. And like, so they know all this stuff. It was a great report. And then they're like, but we're not using it in our own stuff, because they're not willing to put a stake in the ground and say, no, we really need content authenticity.
All right. So we're talking to creators here at VidCon, people who are building businesses in the creator economy on video and other places. Why should creators get involved? What's in it for them with Divine?
So when we first announced this, we had a bunch of Viners and creators show up, and we had their agencies and their agents and their reps all show up, and they're like, hey, you should,
pay me money and I'll go do stuff there, right?
Exactly. That's exactly what they said. They said, pay us and we'll post on your platform. And we had to say, no, that's not what we're doing. And it's not because we don't want you to get paid. It's not because we don't want you to make money. It's not because we want to make all the money off the platform. But this is like podcasting, where you can control more of your experience. And so we want creators to have their creators' businesses. We want them to be able to put links in their stuff. We want them to be able to sell stuff. We want them to be able to charge for content if they want. Their businesses are theirs, and we're not trying to control that lion's share of the profits. If you look at what, like, especially TikTok and Instagram are doing, they run those ads and very little of that money goes back to the creators. YouTube and Snap, they're giving some money back to creators. But in TikTok and Instagram, they're not. And so what's the benefit to the user or the creator of these platforms to run these ads? Because they're not compensating the content creators. And so what we're doing is saying, look, creators own their names, they own their content, they can self-host and view it within the app, just like you can with podcasting. We run a server, but you don't have to use it. And we say, you need to figure out your business that is yours. And like Substack, if you want to move away from us, you can.
All right, so I'm on Vine. I have lots and lots of followers. How do I take those followers with me if I decide to go somewhere else?
So Divine isn't just one app. we have a dozen apps that you can view it and you can just build your own. And so they're following you. They're following, it's a cryptographic identities and a bunch of other stuff back under the cover, but they're following you. And so if you stop using the official Divine app and start using other apps, it's seamless. Like your users, your followers don't need to know which app there is, because just like with a podcast, I don't need to know what tool you use to edit your podcast.
What about advertising? I mean, it's 6 seconds, so it's not like you're going to inject a big sponsored message inside of a Vine. But what's your stance on branded messages or brands getting involved and people putting stuff like that up?
You know, it's not bad. Like the reality is that Vine was something that had a lot of brand marketing in it, and people did a lot of work, and it was authentic because it was things that people cared about and they connected to it. And so there's no restrictions against doing that inside Divine now. And in fact, we're trying to figure out what is a healthy marketplace, what is a healthy set of incentives. And we don't know all the answers, but we do know that a world that doesn't allow that commercial activity is distorted in other bad ways.
So think about a creator that is creating, and I've talked to a bunch of them here. I'm doing short form. I'm putting it on Reels and TikTok, and I'm putting it on Shorts, or I'm doing long form. What's the incentive to go on Vine, and where do you think Divine fits in that spectrum of I'm creating this kind of content for this platform, this other stuff over here? Where does it fit in a creator's day?
So it's not the main polished thing that you're doing. It's the outtakes. It's the thing that create, when Viners got together at 1600 Vine and they were all living in the same building off of Hollywood Boulevard, they would get up in the morning and they would brainstorm ideas for skits, and then they would shoot them that same day and they would post them immediately. So what we're looking at Divine is not saying, oh, this is your only source, or we don't want you to link to other things, that we don't want you to control it. And in fact, what we're saying is, like, this is one kind of medium and one kind of space and one space for creativity. And then we're seeing diviners post videos and then repost them other places and get lots of traction. So, so many people viewed Vines through compilations. And we're now seeing 10-minute, 20-minute, 30-minute compilations of Divine videos, of new ones being posted on YouTube that are going viral themselves.
And is any of that sort of pointing back to you guys, and so people will go there and look at it more, or is it?
We don't need that. Like the truth of the matter is, we're not trying to control the experience. Like, if you view this content on other platforms, that's fine, because we're not monetizing from controlling the eyeballs.
Okay, so what is the business model, and why will you be around in 5 years if you're not monetizing this or this? Creators have complete control, which I love. But I'd love to talk to you in 5 years right here and have you still be talking about this.
So the business model is around a few different things. One,
and it may be emerging, by the way, which is fine.
We don't know.
Yeah, that's fine to say, but I'm just curious.
We don't know, and and part of what we're doing, and part of the reason that I'm doing this with Jack Dorsey, is that we have the resources to sit down and say, let's fix the mistakes, let's do it the right way, let's rethink how we're doing things. But there's a few things. There's micropayments between people. Like, the technology that we're using, Noster, supports micropayments between things. And, Jack has the advantage of owning this giant fintech company called Block.
Jack knows a little about payments.
So he knows a lot about payments and Cash App. So, if you look at how many creators put a Cash App like tag on their stuff for payments, and then we're going to work with brands, who want to promote things. They want viral sounds, or they want videos, or they want their attention. They want to help get an audience, or they want to find the creators who are already talking about these things. If did someone have a particular soft drink or something like that? They want that promotion. They want that audience. They want that authenticity. And it's too much work for them to understand that long tail.
Right, and so they can work there and be part of it. It's a little bit like I think of the initial promise of Snap was a little bit like that, which they got away from because they became a platform. All right, talk to me about the user experience in the 30 seconds we have left, because it's great for creators, but how do you make a great experience that people want to return to again and again and again?
Yeah, it's so fascinating. So the first version of Divine had no algorithm and looked exactly like the original Vine app. And then I sent it out to people and they're like, oh my God, the world has changed in the last decade. And so we had to redesign it. We had to create a For You algorithm that balances new content and the things you're subscribed to. We had to build a modern video editor and recording interface. So we have a classic mode that's that original touch to thing. You can do that, but we have a lip sync mode and we have a, one that does editing and overlay the audio and things like that. We had to update it for what people expect today, where the phones are faster, they're more powerful, the video's higher quality, and we expect more of a social video app.
I think that's great. We are out of time. I have one last real yes/no question. Instagram is even here this year, showing Instagram on television. We're going to see Vine on TV. Divine on TV. Sorry.
I mean, I think that you want to see it everywhere. I think you want to see people making this content and doing collections, but it's going to be compilations.
Yep, it's compilations. Yep. All right. Well, anyway, give it up for Rabble. You should all be trying Vine. Thank you very much. It's really fascinating. I love that you brought this back. Thank you very much.